Welcome to the Zeducation Podcast, where it's all about helping people and organizations unleash their greatness. Hosted by me, Pasitawa Haufano, and my brother, that's me, Kalolo Haufano. The Zeducation Podcast features lively discussions.
When they share it, you see that they're beginning to feel empowered.
My heart, it's full of pride for me to be Tāmaki Samoa.
As well as tips on leadership and business by some of the top minds and influencers around the world.
You don't necessarily need a degree these days. There's so many pathways to success.
Welcome to the Zeducation Podcast. Well, welcome to a special episode of the Zeducation Podcast for Autism Awareness Month. Today, we're excited to talk with Gemma Ikahihifo from Takiwātanga ki Tāmaki Makoto, a charity that works to change the way people see autism in Auckland. Gemma does a lot for the charity, like helping as a treasurer, planning events, and making sure everything runs smoothly. What makes her perspective even more special is that she's a mum to a child with autism. She knows firsthand what it's like and leads with her heart and experience in everything that she does. We're going to hear about her journey, the great work her charity is doing, and how we can all help make the world a better and welcoming place for everyone with autism. Gemma, thank you for coming onto the show today. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
You are very welcome. Icebreaker Question is a question that we ask all our guests before we get into the whole serious conversation, or the nitty gritty. What is something interesting about Gemma that not many people know about?
Oh, gee. I don't know. I like to keep busy. So when people hear what I do, like work, charity, study, church stuff, I think they might think it's a little bit odd. But I actually like it. I like working with people. I like keeping myself busy. I'm not a really gym person, so I like socializing and eating out. So I don't know. Is that interesting?
Oh, that's very interesting. I mean, I don't know too many people. I mean, I hear more complaints about being busy than I do hear about I love being busy. But maybe I guess you're busy doing things that you love, eh?
Yeah.
You know, you enjoy those things like what you do for church, the charity, your work. It's all meaningful stuff. So you're busy with doing the right things.
And I like to talk. So if you're busy at different things, they don't hear you talk as much. They all get a little bit of you talking. Yeah.
Oh, well, hey, this is what the podcast is all about. So I'm pretty keen to hear you talk a lot and share your cool stuff. So let's start with, obviously, it's Autism Awareness Month, right? And some people probably heard of what autism is. Some people have their own, I guess, understanding of what it is. In your own words, for those who don't quite understand what autism is, what is autism?
Oh, I guess it's a neurodiversity. It's a part of the bracket that goes with ADHD, dyslexia. It's all in that umbrella. And we tend to call it Takiwātanga, but the meaning of Takiwātanga is in their or his or her own space and time. So autism, it's just meaning that the connections in their brain are a bit different. And because of that, the way how they might react or behave or seem in their own world is different to the norm. And they tend to have, how do I put it, impairments that come with that. And then it's not due to them doing it on purpose, it's because they have autism, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I like what you said there around neurodiversity. Yeah. And, you know, we can't expect that a person's brain or mind should be developed a particular way. Yeah. Like everyone's different in terms of their development.
Yeah.
Right? And obviously you talked about some of those behaviors. What are some of the behaviors that autistic people or people with autism kind of have that's quite common? I know there's a bit of a spectrum.
Yeah. So I can only talk as a parent of a Takiwātanga. I don't know as being a person with Takiwātanga. But a big one would be the self-regulation. So if something happens, and I'm just going to always use our son as an example, if he was to fall over or get a fright, the way he would react, it would seem like a tantrum, but he just gets so caught up in his emotions that he takes a lot longer to self-regulate or to calm down. And then he even gets upset at the fact that he's upset. And so for what may take someone who doesn't have takiwātanga maybe 10 to 15 minutes to calm down, our son could do it for hours and then remember the next day and it still affect him. So that I would say was the biggest one, is that they're not always able to self-regulate, and because of that they can carry a lot of hurt or mamai, and they might not always be able to tell you also what's wrong, and that's another thing that would then also upset them. So with our son it would be the behaviours. He is a sweet, sweet boy, but when he gets in those moments and he doesn't understand why he's reacting away, or his first reaction may be to hit or fight or scream to try and get out of it because he's feeling unsafe, that can overwhelm him, and then that overwhelms everything around him.
So even though autism, what I'm hearing is kind of like term that people use to class a specific, different neurodiversity, they're still individuals. They're different, right? So this autistic person might be a little bit different in terms of their behavior versus another autistic child. So you can't expect them to all be kind of the same, because one child might have, quite sensitive to noise.
Yes,
like they don't
true.
like loud noise. Another person might be a little bit sensitive when it comes to like visual things.
Yep.
So you just got to be mindful that autistic children are a little bit different, even though you classify them as all autistic.
Yeah, and so their sensory needs are just a bit heightened, so it could be also smell, taste, feelings, like the sounds and noise. And just like you said, they're all different. It's hard to explain because you could meet people and they mean to be nice, but they could say something like, oh, my friend has a grandson and he's autistic and he loves Roblox and chicken, so your kid must love Roblox and chicken. There's a spectrum, right? And the thing about the spectrum is even the specialists in that, they can't fully distinguish the spectrum. So you could have someone that is Takiwātanga that is 25 years old, and where they're at mentally might also be similar to where a child is at, because we never know. With autism, you kind of take it as it comes and you go day by day, week by week. Some are highly intelligent and they are excelling at school and they're able to mainstream school and enter into sports games or do clubs and go to uni and move out on their own. Others aren't. And I think people always assume that all autistics are either very, very, intellectually disabled, or they're very, very intelligent. They're not very kind and understanding to everything else in between. And the spectrum doesn't have an ending. It's not like a beginning to an end. And I was actually talking about this at work the other day in a meeting. I got really upset. The specialist had put through a documentation for a child and it said mild autistic. And they were talking, the needs mustn't be that high. I have this big thing that if you're Takiwātanga, you're Takiwātanga, right? You don't have a percent. There's not a quotum. You're not 10% Takiwātanga. You're not 80%. When you're Takiwātanga, you're Takiwātanga. Your needs can change each day. They could be milder needs and higher needs. But one's not more than the other and one's not better than the other. So when we say on the spectrum, we just mean the different areas of things in their life, like social, learning, all that kind of spectrum. But it's not like a high to low, if that makes sense. Just the needs can be different.
Yeah, it's almost like you're taking one type of measurement and using it to judge and assess everybody.
Yeah.
When everybody's actually different in terms of their development and their journey, and over time as an individual, that autistic child, that journey might look different in terms of another one. And I think that's quite interesting in terms of you got specialists who say, that if they've got some sort of measurement, then they're saying this is the normal here.
Yeah.
And then we're going to use that to measure everyone. But everyone's starting point is a little bit different, eh?
Yes.
Everyone's starting point, right? And the journey as well from there.
Yeah, so with our son, we got his diagnosis quite young. Our son also has other disabilities, so it was easy for the specialist to see. Autism diagnosis is done over time. You don't just see a specialist once and they give it. So you tend to have to do different visits, or they'll ask parents or the schools about behaviours, their learning, their mannerisms, if they do stimming, if they have any sensory issues. And so it's like a collected, gathered diagnosis. And so some children or people get in early and they're lucky, or some take a while to get the diagnosis. So it just depends, I guess, where you are, how great your like GPs and specialists are, if you can afford to go private, if you can't, if other whānau members have the diagnosis already, it tends to be in families. So yeah, everyone's beginning journey is different. I do know that for girls, they mask a lot better, so they tend to get diagnosed a lot older, unless their behaviours and mannerisms are very easy to see. Yeah.
And I guess, if you've got a child, you're a parent, what was it like in terms of how you found out that your son had autism, and what was that experience like as a parent?
This will sound really weird, but I was actually really relieved. Our son was a very hard baby, and he's the baby of 5 children. So we already had children, and we couldn't figure out what we were doing different, why we weren't able to get him to settle, to go to sleep, to breastfeed properly, to eat properly. He was literally stuck to us. We couldn't even put him down without him crying. So it was like a long 2 to 3 years. And my husband's going to laugh when he hears this. We'd been to like the osteo, the different types of healers, doctors, seeing if it's tongue-tied, dietitians, just to see what's up, like what's happening with our son. And then when the pediatrician at the super clinic said, I think your son's autistic. I said, great, now I can understand what's happening. Because I thought I was doing something wrong, if I'm being honest. As a mother, I thought I should know what his needs were, but he just kept crying and I couldn't figure it out. And then I was given the answer, I was able to go research something or learn about something. So that's my experience. I don't know if my husband's would be the same, but for us, that's how we found out.
Yeah, it will be interesting to get your husband's perspective on it. But, just hearing you as a mother, I mean, you can sense something's different.
Yeah.
With the child, especially when you've got 4 other ones that have come before. And so I guess hearing that, I can understand that, it's a sense of relief because it's not me. We are doing the best that we can. But I guess understanding now is like, cool, now I understand my child has autism. Now I can do things differently to help my child. Yeah. So I really like that. So tell us about the family dynamics then. So you found out, husband knows, I know there's a role that you play as a mother with your child who has autism, but I also know that everyone in the family also plays a key part because it's their brother or the son. So I guess what does that look like in the family, and how does everyone kind of work together to support?
If I'm being really honest, disability affects the whole family. No matter what the disability is or who it is that's disabled, whether it's a parent or a child. He's the baby of our family, so he was already naturally spoilt. But I am aware that sometimes we need to give more attention to him, that his siblings might not miss out, but that he just gets extra. Or when he plays up or has tantrums, sometimes we give in to de-escalate the situation. And so we often have to stop and talk with our other children, just be like, hey, thank you so much for being really great. Our other children are actually really great. We have another son that's also disabled in a wheelchair, and Halutu even tantrums at him. And so I have learnt that the responsibility to support and care is as a whole family, but that it's mainly on me and my husband. It's not the sibling's job to have to do everything for their sibling that happens to be disabled. And some might disagree, but they're very helpful, but I only like them to help to a certain point because I don't want the disability to affect their lives too much. They're already in the disability world because they have a sibling that's disabled, and that comes with heaps of things. Sometimes we can't go to things. Sometimes their brother plays up and we have to leave. Sometimes when he gets upset, will hit you. And we teach our kids not to hit, but with him, he doesn't always listen to that. Sometimes he'll chuck things. He could ruin like a special moment. I shouldn't say the word ruin. He should act out so in that time it feels ruined, but we understand that that's just because of how he interprets situations. So the whole family is affected. I will say, even though there is a lot of things that affect the family, he also does bring a lot of happiness. Our son happens to be quite cheeky. You've met him. And so I know that's due to his autism. He has deficits, yes, but he also has really amazing talents and strengths. And that also blesses our family.
Wow, I love that. I mean, you've mentioned a lot of things, patience, love, just empathy and understanding. I guess, what are some advice that you can give to families who might have a child or someone with autism?
It's not you. There's nothing that you did that caused autism. There's nothing that you can do to undo autism. Your child or family member that's Takiwātanga needs a lot of love and support, and it can be overwhelming. In the very beginning, and even now, when I'm still learning to navigate behaviours, because that tends to be a big one, he can make us cry, and he doesn't mean to. His behaviour or how he does things can make us cry. I know when I need to step out and take a break, and I know that I need to check in with myself to be mentally aware. I know that I need to check in with the other family members to check that they're mentally okay, because he could tantrum and we're all horrified and he's okay 30 minutes later. I would just say, take help if it's offered as well. If a whānau or a friend is like, hey, would you like me to watch so-and-so for a little bit while you can just doing this, or just catch up on your sleep, or go get your nails done, or go play some sports game, take it. There's no shame in accepting help and love from other people. We do that with children that are not autistic, so there shouldn't be too much of a difference with that. I'd also say be your own advocate. So if you don't know how to do that in the beginning, ring up, call people, email people, Google search, look at all the supports that's available and advocate for your person, because the knowledge isn't easily out there. And if you're stressed every day, then you're not getting enough support. Once you get enough support, it might not be super easy, but there's that buffer. So you're supported, and that means that your Takiwātanga person will be supported.
I love that. You got to look after yourself and
Yeah.
a level of self-care, because it's not easy. It is hard and it can be stressful sometimes. And I love that you've pointed out the reality of it.
Yeah.
And not being whakamā or shy to accept help or ask for help. And I guess you've mentioned a good point there, like for whānau. So it might not be their child, it might be their nephew. Like I'm an uncle of someone who has autism. My nephew has autism and I love him to bits. You know, my kids grow up with him. I see him every day almost because I do school pickups, but I love him to bits. But, you know, what are some advice to whānau, the wider community, and I guess, you know, how they can support a whānau or a member with autism?
Don't be afraid to ask, or don't be afraid to come and say, hey, I'd really love your kid to have a play date. Is there things that I should be cautious about? Or would you prefer if we come to your house to play? Don't not include the person. I mean, they may have autism, but they can see and recognise when there's a whole group over there being included and they're not. They get left out of stuff enough. People seem to think that just because they're Takiwātanga or autism, they wouldn't enjoy the normal things in life, or they wouldn't understand, or they wouldn't comprehend. Yeah, they may not be reading at their age level or know how to do the maths equation, but human connection and human, friendship, that's not on a, that's not on an autistic scale. That's not, you have to be this bright to be a friend with someone. That's just everyone's basic human needs to feel loved and friendships. And children notice, especially, kids want friends. They love hanging with, their uncles, their aunties, their grandparents, but they really want to hang with their cousins and their friends. And if you don't know, ask. Don't assume. Also, one thing that always irritates me is if I go somewhere and say we were at like a gala and they're giving out free lollipops, and they'll see my son stimming, so they'll notice that he's a little bit different. They'll say, oh, what lollipop do you think he'll want? How about you ask him? And then if he doesn't respond, or he looks like he's a bit frightened from you talking, or just say, hey, is it okay if I ask your child what lollipop they want? Because you should be asking any parent about that. Nowadays, you can't just give any kid a lollipop. So why is my son different? Why are you asking me to make the decision for him? He is a person. If he doesn't understand, I'm always there to help and support him. But don't assume that I get to take away the right of his choices, even if it's something as little as a lollipop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. And I want to go back to your point around, like, you know, someone with autism, and I don't want to make it sound like a negative thing, because I also want to talk about the beautiful side of that as well. Yes, there's some challenges that come with autism, but there's also beauty as well. But I just wanted to, before we get into that, point out, obviously I told you my nephew, and I always do the school pickups, and my children play and grow up with him. And it's interesting to see how my children, I guess, navigate that space. My children just know. Kids just know if another kid, they don't label it as autism. And as us parents never told, like, your cousin has autism. So be mindful in that. The children just pick up on it. Yeah. You know, like, for example, my daughter Alosia, every time, you know, she's walking with him, she always holds his hand because he has this tendency to just take off.
Yeah.
Right. So when she's like walking on the sidewalk, she makes him walk on the safe side, and my daughter's on the side where the road is, the car is, because she knows, yep, got to protect them. Or my son, Pussy, I feel sorry for him sometimes, but sometimes he gets bitten or hit by him. But my son understands, he never hits back. He cries and cries, but he never hits back. And but my children understand, and it's kind of cool to see that.
Yeah, kids are great. Kids are really great.
They pick up on that, eh? I want to go back to, you use the word Takiwātanga. Can you unpack what that, I love that word and what it means, but for those who don't understand, in real, I mean, you use that word for autism, but what does the actual word mean?
It means in there, so his or her own time or space. So the word was given, and it does also cover the other neurodiversities, but we just tend to use it for autism. So those that would use it for ADHD or something in that category, that's okay too. There are other words that they may use for that, but that's okay if they use that word too. I guess the reason why we like using that word is in Te Ao Māori, it's a strength-based kaupapa, Takiwātanga. And because, you know, when you're given the diagnosis, you're generally told what your person or child can't do. When I was given it for our son, at the time he was non-verbal and he wasn't able to go to the bathroom by himself. So the specialist, and it might be his job, but he told me all these things that my son was never going to be able to do. And I was kind of left thinking, oh, so then what do I do, or what do we look forward to? Because it was just so negative. Takiwātanga is a positive word. It means celebrating their talents, their strengths, their interests, their place in the family, their place in the community, their connection to the water, you know, the land, all of that through their Takiwātanga journey.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful, and I love that translation of it.
Well, I didn't. That came from, I think, Kerry Opai. He did a te reo book for, I can't remember who was working at the time, but he did all the te reo words for disability, well, those that were missing, because back in the day they didn't have a word for that. I think that back in the day the te reo word was like hawa for disability, but it came with a negative connotation. So Takiwātanga is positive, or strength-based is what we say, or that it's mana enhancing.
I love that. And I'm pretty keen to hear a little bit more about the charity that you work for. What is it called again? Takiwātanga ki Tāmaki Makoto. So tell us a little bit about that trust and the mahi that you do.
So it's a Māori autism support group for Auckland, Takamaki Makoto. And so we're just very new, and we just got our first lot of funding. And so we're trying to start holding huis where whānau can just come and be together, because there are some great ones done by Passage and the Tongan Autism Support Group in Auckland for the Pacific Islander family. But for Māori whānau, there wasn't one. And I went along to one of the Tongan Autism Support Group's events at the movies, and I had the best time. And then I thought, why is this not there for my Māori whānau? You know, why are we missing out? And so we've started, I think we're about 1 to 1.5 years old. We've got a first thought of funding, like I said. We're holding our first hui actually on Saturday. But it's just for whānau to come together and talk about where they might need extra support, what they're finding hard, if we're able to direct them in the right way for services, and to just sit down with other parents and whānau of that and be able to conversate and have them there and not think we can't go to things. You're often not always excluded on purpose by people, but you sometimes might not want to go because you already know how they're going to react. But in a space where that's already known, safe space. Yeah, and there's not a lot out for parents. We have, there's like the Facebook pages and they're lovely, but meeting face to face, and we're Māori, so we like to eat. So having a kōrero and having a kai and being able to cry together and laugh together, celebrate together, have a bit of time out, and then refresh and go back to our roles. Yeah.
I love that Pacifica and Māori people making this a priority and more aware, especially with the culture, who for those who might not understand fully autism, but lucky, we're in a space, especially here in Aotearoa, where we get access to all this information, access to all this support that help us to, I guess, embrace those with Takiwātanga, Yeah, which is great. Tell us a little bit more about the mission and the vision of what you guys do.
Oh, I should have brought our booklet. So like I said, our mission is to bring more awareness to the community with a cultural aspect. When you go through, I'm just going to say it, the public health system, it doesn't really represent or acknowledge your cultural beliefs. And it's not their fault. They just do it very medically, very sterile. And so when you're desperate and when you're wanting support, you sometimes cling to the things that make you feel comfortable. And for a lot of people, that's their culture. Whether or not you're harder into your culture, cultural elements of things do help, Māori, like I said, are strength-based. Māori have karakia. Māori like to be positive. They have waiata, they have kai, they have rongoa, they have mirimiri. So those cultural elements, if you were feeling down, would be able to make you feel better. And so this group hopefully can be that for the whānau that are needing, support and help. It's very new. Hopefully, we've got about 200 something members, but it's not about the numbers, not about that. It's about having a service that wasn't there. About when I got the diagnosis for my son, there was nothing. So it's about us doing something and then thinking, hey, what would we have liked to have happen? And we meet some incredible parents, and not all of them are actually Māori. They're just through the group, because we focus on Māori kaupapa, that's how we'll do our events and that's how we'll speak, but you don't have to be Māori. You just have to be able to be respectful and understand that where we're coming from is a te ao Māori perspective. Yeah.
I love that cultural approach, especially for those who, the supporters like yourself, who have to look after and care for those with autism, and things like waiata, karakia to keep us grounded, help us find peace, and be present as well, because it helps you become, I guess, a better version of yourself and a strong version of yourself, and that strong version is better capable of helping and supporting and serving. So making sure that you're looking after the healing and the self-care aspect of it as well. Tell us a little bit more about the coming back to the focus on those with autism, and understanding them a little bit more. What are some things that help that you've found from whether experience or working with those with autism that is really empowering and good for them, that they really like?
I think acknowledging them, letting them be seen, and then finding out what their interests are, what their skills are, what their talents are, what they can contribute, whether it's very small in the whānau or in the community. They might not be able to do the huge chores that the other children can do, but if you're still giving them a chore, they're still contributing to the whānau. They may not be able to participate in all the sports clubs, but if you let them bring the oranges or water bottle or hold the rugby ball while the game's going. So it's including them, but finding what they want to do in that inclusion. Don't just assume and say, oh, this would be good for them, and try to force them to do something. Another thing is trying to force them to change. They can't. Their brain isn't wired like that. I mean, negative behaviours, they can hopefully learn to change, but if they don't, then you learn better ways to deal with it, or better ways to help them understand that it might not be a positive thing. Teaching them that they're still important, that they'll hear a lot of people around them say, oh, they're autistic, or this, but that they're still very valuable and loved, and they're a very important person, and they have a lot to give to society. One thing I will say about my son is he notices very small things. So he kind of makes us stop to be grateful for the little blessings that we get. He always stims with his food, so it's a positive stim. So when he enjoys his food, it's like, all my other kids can be ungrateful as, and he will stim for spaghetti on toast. Or we could have been somewhere and we hop in the car and he'll say, the girl's pretty ribbon was beautiful. Uh-huh. What girl? And he said, the girl with the purple ribbon. And we walk past her and he'll say, you're very beautiful, your purple ribbon is beautiful. It's the little things that I guess while rushing and navigating through life, I don't stop to recognize. And I see a beauty in that. Our son can name different types of whales. I swear we must have watched it on YouTube once. And if I say that's a killer whale, no, that's an orca whale. Or we'll see the sky and he'll stand there and he'll say, do you like the crescent moon? Because he doesn't speak a lot. But those kind of things I'm kind of astounded at. He's 6 years old. I don't know if I cared too much to look at the moon when I was 6. Do you know what I mean? Or that I cared too much about a girl's ribbon and stopped to tell her that she was beautiful. So there's those beautiful sides to our son because he's Takiwātanga. I don't know if they'd necessarily be there if he isn't. So there's this great beauty, and it does influence the rest of the whānau in our lives. And I think that's often missed, that we often focus on the deficits, but there's so much more positives. Yeah. So that's a bit about our son and a bit about autism, is that you can't understand it. There are specialists that can help with behaviours and they study it, but as a parent you can understand some things and some things might change. Don't take it personal. They're not doing it to be vindictive. They don't always understand, and just knowing how to empower both of you in a situation, I think, is what helps. Because I don't know it all. He's only 6. Things can change. But when changes happen, I make sure to realign myself, and I make sure to try and check and put things in place for him so that everybody is okay.
I love that. That's beautiful. You know, those people look at those with autism as those who are disabled, which is the wrong way to look at anybody, because we're all different.
Yeah.
You might as well call me disabled because I'm different to you, right? But that's not what it is. And I love how you talked about that. They bring so much beauty and joy into the world, and even to our own families as well. And something we should never forget. And I think the other thing that I liked from what you just said is around sometimes it's not them and their, I guess, their development that's disabling. It's sometimes the environment that disables them.
Yeah.
It's not the right environment. So maybe, the social environment might be the noise, might be whatever it is that's in the environment that doesn't suit them.
Yeah.
Right?
And I mean, if it's sensory stuff, I'll just say our son, he's very literal and he likes things to be the same. So if we put him into a completely new environment and we haven't gone with him and practiced that environment, he's going to play up. But he's not playing up. He's just reacting to a space where he feels unsafe. If we were to feel unsafe, we would react the same. But then people say it's not okay when he's doing it. We put so much pressure on Takiwātanga people to have to be not Takiwātanga that we're not actually helping them. Or the time that it takes to de-escalate. We seem to think that if you're upset, you have to have gotten over something within 10 minutes, or something's wrong. But they're allowed their time to come back down. That's actually really normal and actually better for your mental health if you have the time, instead of how some parents will say, you better stop that crying. You better stop crying right now. At least with our son, you can't even make him stop crying. He needs his time. But that's a lesson to me and my whole family. It's better mentally if you slowly take the time to de-escalate. There's the beauty in things, that how they do things. He's a routine person. He'll notice if things are out of routine. I might forget and he'll be like, hey, you didn't do family prayers. And then he'll sit down and we all have to do family prayers no matter how late it is, because that's our routine. I have breakfast, then I brush my teeth. if we try to get it out of order, it like really upset him. A really cute story, this is really random about our son though, is because he's so literal. When he first started school, I think it was like the second day, they played What's the Time, Mr. Wolf, and there's a time to eat you. He lost it. The teachers told me that he was really upset and he was like, why are they trying to eat me? Why did they? And I was just like, oh, it's been hard enough to get him into school. And then the cutest little story, but I like that his literalness keeps us in check and reminds us of things. Yeah, I could go on and on talking about Takiwātanga. I'm very passionate about it. I'm very passionate about our son, but he's a great little kid. You've met him. He has this huge personality and you couldn't change him even if you wanted to. Yeah.
It's interesting that you mentioned routine. I think I did a bit of research prior to this, because obviously, I don't want to just come in blank, and also help add value and the flow to the conversation. But I watched a TED Talk, and the person who gave the TED Talk has autism, but she's also a doctor.
Yep.
And she's also done her PhD in this field with autism.
Nice.
So anyway, it was so great to listen to her. But one of the things that she mentioned was those with autism, most of them love routine. They love routine because it's the whole repetition thing as well. But what I find quite interesting about that is, even from a business sense, or even just like in your job or family, routine's a good thing for everybody.
Yeah, it is.
Routine
Common
helps
ground,
everybody.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because routine is also backed up by process, systems, step by step, and we're all on the same page. Things are done a certain way for a certain reason.
And you know the outcome. You know that it works. You know the positive, what you're going to happen at the end. There's nothing you're going to get caught off guard about. That's why routine works.
Yeah. But I think that's a good point there. And that's a cute story around the whole, what's the time, Mr. Wolf? I think
he was actually traumatized for like a couple of weeks. I had to keep saying, no, your teacher's not going to eat you. It's okay. Why should she say that? Because he does very limited. Why would she do that? Why she eat children? But he does have a helper at school, so that was really great that she was able to like de-escalate. But yeah, they called me and I said, what happened? Oh, he thought we were trying to hurt him. They're trying to hurt me. They want to eat me. I said, oh, you're delicious. And you can't, that's the other thing. You can't always joke with my son. You're delicious. He's like, no, I'm not. So yeah, that's just him though. He does do a few jokes himself, and I have met a lot of Takiwātanga people that have a hilarious sense of humour. It's just like how everyone's different. He's quite a literal person, so if you joke with him, he might not take it the way that it was intended. Yeah.
I love that. What is some common things that people misunderstand around autism?
That they can change, that it's intentional, that they caused it, a lot of parents and family, that they won't be able to live a good life, that they'll never be able to be independent, that they can't make choices for themselves, and that they're all violent and misbehave.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just like how you said, how the doctor, was a doctor and had a PhD, that they can't be academics or that they can't integrate into normal society. There's a lot of people that have Takiwātanga, very, different places on the spectrum and very different abilities and interests even. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that, because that's one of the biggest things I've learned is not all autistic children fit on the same spectrum, because at the end of the day, they're still individuals,
Yeah.
and they're still on their own, development and their own journey in life. So yes, you can say, oh yeah, you can classify them under the same umbrella, but you can't compare one autistic child with another.
Just like you can't compare people, right? We're all not the same. You can't make us be the same. Yet they expect someone with a disability to have to be the same. I was like, pressure much. And let's be honest, because not everyone's the same, life's a bit more interesting. It's not as boring. We're all different. I love hanging out with my friends that are different to me. It'd get quite boring if we're just all the same. And then, but I also love hanging out with people that are the same as me. So we all make up like these different friendships and bring these different personalities. And that's what makes the world fun, and friendships and all contributing, in our own way.
Yeah, I definitely believe that diversity is a good thing. Yeah. And I shared this with my leadership students, the analogy of a cake. It takes diverse or different ingredients to make a delicious and a beautiful cake. You know, you can't have just one ingredient.
Yeah.
It takes different types of ingredients. And I guess that comes back to those with autism and all of us, diversity, neurodiversity, cultural diversity, everything diversity. We're all different, we're all unique. And that's what makes this world a beautiful place to live in. You know, so thank you so much for your time. You know, you've blessed us with and been so generous with your experience and sharing your thoughts as well around autism. And, you know, if there's anything, I just want people to know that, you know, it's Autism Awareness Month, and it's not about, these people are disabled and that we have to feel sorry for them. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
You know, it just helps us to be aware. It's more for us to be aware on how we can better support, serve, and empower them.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I guess before we end this podcast, any final words of encouragement, advice for our listeners?
Just reiterating that if you're needing support in New Zealand, wherever you are, ASD or autism or Takiwātanga is covered under whaikaha. So if you're needing help, you'd go to your disability support and ask and see how they can help you. Ministry of Education does all the schooling stuff. The continence nurse will do all the nappies, and then your NAS will do the everyday living. There's support there, and your person or child is eligible. Why wouldn't you go to get it to see if it can help make your life a little bit easier? I also want to say, don't be so hard on yourself. Whether your child or person has Takiwātanga or not, it's super hard being a parent or a family member and helping others grow. Because they are Takiwātanga, it's okay to not always be 100% perfect parent. It's okay to sit down while they're tantruming and you can sit down and come to. It's okay to not always have it together. It's okay to just want to celebrate them and not have to, think of all their deficits. It's okay too. It's okay to be realistic and not always think they're bringing all the positive stuff. That's okay too. It's okay to need help. Go find help if you need it. It's okay to not need help. It's okay to want to help your person be as independent as they can. And it's okay to also be scared about the future that they're going to have. Everything's okay. I will say the other thing I do love, I've got to say this, about Te Ao Māori is that no one is alone. It's a community-centred focus. And that's why we share through our group about that, and that's why I always bring back to that, because it sucks being alone. People can achieve great things alone, but it's a lot funner and more supportive if you're in a group and part of a whānau. If you're needing help, look me up on Facebook. If I can give you advice, I will. Go to your friends who you might know stuff, or go to others, or look up the support groups on Facebook, or look up my group. We will help you whether or not you're in Auckland or not. We're all in this together, and that's how we get through it. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Not the same rewards as others might see, but when you see your person with Takiwātanga joining in life and feeling happy, then you feel happy, right? And hopefully we can help each other feel happy. So that's what I advocate for, okay? Everyone be happy.
I love it. Some great advice here, encouragement for our listeners. And for those, you talked about community, speaking of community and group, for those who want to support or learn more about Takiwātanga ki Tāmaki Makoto, how can they get in touch?
We're on Facebook. It's a closed group, so you just have to request. And then we would ask you why you want to request, because you have to be safe, but you just do that. Or you can, you'll see that I'm one of the admin. There's 4 of us that are admin. Once you request it, we'll accept you and you can see everything. Or you can just find me on Facebook. That's okay, because I'm sure my name will be given with the podcast.
Awesome. And we'll leave some information and a link in the podcast description as well. Again, thank you so much for blessing us with your time, and all the best.